Let's move on to the next session. Economist and business executive Albert Panikers is here with us. He is the grandson of Ramuni Paniker, one among the Malayalis who emigrated to Spain a decade before. He performed as a channel to trade and culture exchange of India and Spain. KLF cordially invite Albert Paniker.
Good morning. We will speak English now. I come from Spain. I speak Spanish, I speak Catalan, and a little bit of English. So after traveling to the Himalayas, this is a story of my grandfather. His name is Ramuni Paniker. He left India for a scholarship to study in Leeds, in the United Kingdom, in the early part of the 20th century. He became an immigrant. Later, he became an exilee, and he founded a family in Barcelona, Spain. He married a Catalan woman named Carmen and had four children. I'm grandchildren. These children are characterized by being very entrepreneurial, the spirit of the father, and high intellectual capacity from the mother. They all were very spiritual people. The Hindu part from the father, the Christian part from the mother. It was at the beginning of the 20th century when Ramuni Paniker, who studied in Victoria College in Pelach, got a scholarship to go to Presidential College in Madras to study chemistry. He went with his father by train to Madras. He was not allowed to travel on first class because he was Indian, and that upset them very much. In 1904, he graduated with honors, and he then was granted another scholarship to go to the University of Leeds in England. On the first instance, her mother didn't want him to go to England because his horoscope said that if he left India, he would never come back. But the whole family pressed to let him go and take this opportunity. So he went to Leeds, which was a university recently created from the unification of College of Science and School of Medicine. And it accepted women, it accepted non-Europeans and non-Christian students, which was something different for the time. Ramuni Paniker then traveled to India, and he left behind Kalyani, his young wife, And later he knew that Kalyani was pregnant. He didn't know when he went to England. When in Leeds, his son, Kutan, Madhavan Menon, but we call him Kutan, he was born. After graduating in Leeds, he lived in London, where he had a first job and was a founding member of the Guild for Science and Technology. So this is the story of Ranmuni Paniker from the early part of the 19th century. In 1909, a tragic event marked the course of the following years in his life. In London, in July, at the Imperial Institute, Sir Corson Wiley, who was Lieutenant Colonel of the British Army serving in occupied India, was assassinated by an Indian student by the name of Madam Lal Dhingra. Dhingra had close ties with the India House, a student residence in London where nationalist views amongst students were promoted. Due to this link between Dhingra and India House, the organization declined and the police, Scotland Yard, asked the students to leave the country or the residents in that place. Some of them went to Germany, some of them to France, some of them to the United States. Ranmuni Paniker went to Heidelberg in Germany. In fact, because of his ties with the Indian freedom fighters, he could neither return to British-occupied India. So he had to move somewhere else. It is not discarded that he also participated in the Indo-German conspiracy, whereby Indian nationalist groups planned against the British Raj. We are at the beginning of the 20th century. At the time of the First World War, 1914, Ranmuni escaped the war by going to Spain, where he had a friend from his student's time. Here begins a love story with Carmen Alemany, a young Catalan, cultivated and Christian Catholic woman, 10 years younger than him. It is said that while in Barcelona, Ranmuni Paniker became sick. He found lodging in an apartment belonging to the Carmen's family, and Carmen took care of him. And that's where the love story begins. Carmen, the wife, received traditional Christian education, mastered piano playing. She was my teacher at piano when I was 8 and 9, although she would have liked to study philosophy. But at that time, women did not study philosophy. They were asked to study other subjects like arts and piano. It's no wonder that 2 of her 4 children became true philosophers. She was cultivated and very much self-reliant. That explains the courage he had to marry an Indian, dark, a Malayali person in 1916 against the odds of the whole family. Before marrying, Ranmuni was baptized as Christians. His sons say a religion that he never took so seriously. He used to say, it all sounds as heavenly music. He never abandoned his Hindu rites and prayers. Years later, when he was already invalid, it was hard for him to accept, in his Indian mentality, that his elder son, Raymond, decided to become a Roman Catholic priest instead of continuing the family business he founded. Fortunately, this task of continuing the family business was taken by his second child, daughter, Mercedes, who was my mother. Between 1919 and 1927, the Paniker Alemán couple had 4 children, 3 boys and 1 girl. Raymond, Jose Maria, and Salvador, predominantly intellectuals. Mercedes, predominantly businesswoman. In 1922, Ramoni founded the company Paniker, producing chemicals for the leather industry, especially for shoe manufacturing. He had to rebuild the manufacturing plant twice due to destructive fires. Really, Ramoni was a determined character, a person that always kept calm and maintained the clarity of purpose. Thanks to that, today, the company still operates and is part of a multinational industrial group. 1936 to 39 were the times of the Spanish Civil War. When life became more difficult in Barcelona, Ramoni took his family to Germany, and the 2 elder children continued studies in Germany boarding schools. Just prior to that, there is a testimony of KPS Menon, who later became the first foreign secretary in India's independent government, when he visited Barcelona in 1934, who wrote in his book of memory called Many Walls, "At Barcelona, we met an interesting India, Ramoni Paniker. It was touching to see how wistfully he spoke of his childhood in Malabar here, and of the relations whom he had not seen from years and was not likely to see again, because as long as Britain remained in India, there was no hope of he getting a passport." The tears welled up in his eyes when he recited some hymns which he too had learned as child. Truly, there is nothing so desolate as the heart of an exilee, however prosperous he may be in a foreign land. That was KPS Menon talking about Ramoni Paniker when he visited. In fact, after 1947, he always wanted to revisit India with his wife Carmen. But then he had a paralysis stroke that kept him on a wheelchair until his death in 1954 at the age of 69. In 1948, her daughter married, and as wedding present, he gave them a trip to India and to Kerala. The new couple were treated like kings, but there was a condition: not to visit the family. Mercedes could not understand and wanted to visit the family, but Joaquin, my father, forced her to obey. That's why she didn't know about her half-brother Kutan until much later. So as the horoscope said, Ramoni never went back to India, and only after her death, Carmen, the wife, visited for the first time with her elder son, Raymond, who had already lived in Varanasi for several years. About the elder son, Raymond, philosopher, prolific author, his complete works are now being published in 5 languages. His spiritual journey can be summarized by his statement when he was about 50. He said, "I went to India being a Christian. I then discovered myself Hindu. I now return to the West Buddhist. without ever having abandoned my Christianity. No wonder interreligious dialogue was his main subject, where he taught at the University of California for several years. Elder son Raymond, I'm going back to the family history, was the first to meet his half-brother Kutan, already in the 1960s. He could not overturn the resentment feelings that Kutan had for a family that had abandoned him, in spite of the fact that Ramuni, the father, always helped the family financially. It was later the half-sister Mercedes who intimated with Kutan to become very close to each other. During the last 30 years of her life, my mother, who died 8 years ago, traveled regularly to Kerala, where she pursued Ayurvedic treatments for her Parkinson's disease. She was, like her parents, a determined and self-reliant woman, and decided to re-establish relations with the father's family, and she found many of that family in Kerala, all over India, and also in the Gulf. In fact, the following days, I will visit most of that family, continuing my mother's tradition. In 1998, that's already 20 years ago, she founded the Sri Ramuni Paniker Udbodham Trust to honor his father's memory and return to Kerala something of what we received from him. The main purpose of the Ramuni Paniker Trust is to support young students with talent and financial difficulties to pursue higher education. Up to date, more than 400 students have benefited from this scholarship program, and in the coming week, I will be delivering 60 scholarships for this academic year. In addition, we aim at fostering intercultural exchange between Kerala and Spain. Being at the Literature Festival, I'm glad to announce that we are interested in translating Malayalam contemporary literature into Spanish, and likewise Spanish authors into Malayalam. And I spoke to him with DC Books if we can manage some in that direction. This would be a very nice way to bring both worlds of Ramuni Paniker together, Kerala and Spain. Thank you for your attention. If you have any questions, I'm there.
Thanks very much for this exposition. And I'm sorry I just came a little bit late. I would like if you could very briefly just point out what were the reasons that impel, your grandfather to leave India. Just a little bit, very shortly, because I just missed that, and I'm very interested in that part.
In fact, nothing impelled him because he got a scholarship to study in the United Kingdom in the University of Linz. The only complication was the mother, because the mother knew from his horoscope, if Ramuni leaves India, he will never come back. And she didn't allow him to go. But she couldn't stand to the pressure of the family, saying, that's a brilliant boy, that's a brilliant opportunity to go. He was graduated with honors from Madras. And at the end, they twisted her arm, and he left for Leeds. And then he wanted to go back, but it was the problem that he was, according to the British, he was a friend of the terrorists who killed Sir Wiley Corson, and he would not be allowed into British India. After 47 is when he wanted to return, and then he got the paralysis stroke. And he was on a wheelchair for the rest of his life.
Thank you. One second. And are you thinking to translate Raymond Paniker's work into Malayalam also? Or
That's beyond my scope. Ramoni Paniker work is the opera Omnium is finally being translated into English. In fact, it has 2 English publishers, one in India, one in the United States. But as far as I know, there is not project to translate him in Malayalam. For me, it would be very interesting if we could begin with narrative, contemporary narrative. And in fact, my suggestion to the organizers of the Kerala Literature Festival was when a guest country is invited to be able to bring authors translations so they are known from the general public. So I hope this is some starting point on that direction. I have here a book from Ramoni.
How do you locate yourself in Hinduism and Christianity on yourself?
Myself, I'm Christian. I'm not Hindu because I don't know enough about Hinduism. But I feel very open and very respectful to all the religions. Myself, I'm a Christian, but I like to go to temples. I like to sit and pray. I like the rites, but I don't understand enough. Although I have an uncle who's an expert. I bring his books with him to be a bit more knowledgeable.
Thank you.
Hi. So I read your bio on the Kerala Literature Festival website, and it says that Ramani Paniker was one of the first Malayalis to establish himself in Spain. So can you talk a little bit about, is there a Malayali community now in, I don't know if I missed this, because I did come like 10 minutes late, apologies. And what sort of cultural exchange are you hoping for? I know you mentioned literature and like translating, but like beyond that, because I think culture is such a wide umbrella of things.
There is a Malayali community in Barcelona. They have the Malayali Association Barcelona. I participate in September on the Onam feast that brought them together, and they were about 60 people. Very impressive. Very impressive. And they tell me that it's a growing community because Barcelona is becoming a tech center, and there are many technological companies established there, and they bring Malayali talent, so to speak. So there is a community who maybe 10 years ago had 20 members. Today it has about 80 members. And there are families, and they are all involved, and they are all very integrated in Spain. And it's a real pleasure to be in touch with the Malayali Association in Barcelona. Then I don't know about Madrid or Valladolid or other places, but I'm sure there is the Indian community is growing. But for many years, the Panikers were the only Malayalis in Barcelona. Today, there is a lot more. it's interesting.
And sorry, and personally speaking, how much do you engage with, I mean, I guess the Malayali community in India itself? I don't know. Like, and
Personally, I come to India almost once a year because we are having this Ramuni Paniker Trust. We give the Ramuni Paniker scholarships, and some member of the family, mostly myself, sometimes my sister, do come here for the ceremonies to deliver the scholarships and so on. So I come very often to India. It helps a lot that I'm an overseas citizen of India, so I don't need a visa. I can travel with my OC card. That helps a lot. And we have always, this time I'm staying in India for 3 weeks, and I will be visiting family in Kerala, but also in Bangalore, in Pune, in Mumbai, and at the end in Dubai. So, and I will always be staying with family. So that was the tribute to my mother. Women are a little bit different on that, and she really wanted to re-establish ties with the Malayali family. And they are all scattered around, and I cannot go to Trivandrum because I don't have time enough. Otherwise, we have very good friends and family there too. Let me read you one thing I had prepared here, just for Raymond Paniker. He writes himself Paniker, the son, the elder son, the one that has this prolific publications, and they are publishing the opera Omnia now. Is a very interesting person. Some of the people here in the audience know him very well. But I'm now translating from Catalan because this is the book of his thinking. He wrote so many books, but he said, I've been writing for about 70 years, and I've dedicated to understand the sense of a human life, more justice and more plena, com diríem plena, more full. I didn't live to write, but I write to live in a different manner, more conscious, and to help my brothers with thinking thoughts coming from my mind, not coming from my mind, but from some superior found, which I call a spirit, whatever that is. So it's a very nice thing, a person that has been writing for 70 years. I didn't live to write, I wrote for living more consciously and to explain the thoughts I got, not from my mind, from my spirit. That's Raymond Paniker. And I've asked in the fair if they had books from Raymond Paniker. They don't. But look him up on the web, and Raymond Paniker, son of Ramuni, has an extent work on comparative religions and very inspiring.